Welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today. Now, in our last explainer together, we tackled a really fun topic, secure token handling and burnable tokens. But today we're shifting gears just a bit. We are moving away from the tokens themselves and zooming in on the core architecture that actually supports them on the back end. Basically, we're focusing entirely on engineering resilient, battle-tested APIs for Solana. It's a huge part of building action endpoints and transactions, so let's just dive right in.
So I want you to really think about this for a second. What actually happens when the blockchain just completely ghosts you? Think about it, kind of like package delivery. Sending a transaction to a decentralized network isn't just magic, right? When the RPC, the remote procedure call, gives you a transaction signature back, it's honestly just handing you a tracking number. And as we all know from, say, chaotic holiday shopping, having a tracking number is great, but it absolutely does not guarantee your package made it to the front door. Sometimes things just get lost in transit.
So here's the blueprint for today's explainer. We're going to cover 1. The messy network reality. 2. Parsing RPC responses. 3. The safety of idempotency. 4. Smart retries and backoff. 5. Mapping HTTP statuses. And 6. Debugging your API endpoints.
All right, section 1, the messy network reality.
Look, when you build action endpoints, you are stepping out of your perfect, clean, local sandbox and into real-world chaos. You're going to face transient errors, aggressive rate limits, and these incredibly annoying, ambiguous processing statuses where the RPC node accepts your transaction, but then somehow later fails to process it. Because of this chaos, blind retries basically equal duplicate transactions. If a network request times out and your code just blindly mashes the resend button, you risk unleashing this massive thundering herd of retries onto the network. Best case scenario, you waste a ton of bandwidth. Worst case, you literally charge a user twice for the exact same action because multiple identical transactions went through. Yikes. We definitely need a smarter way to handle this.
That brings us to section 2, parsing RPC responses.
Before we even think about retrying a transaction, we absolutely have to parse the feedback we're getting to decide our next intelligent move. And we can cleanly divide these problems into 2 buckets. On one side, we have transient errors, things like timeouts, connection resets, or 503s. These are just temporary hiccups, totally safe to retry. On the other side, though, are terminal errors. We're talking deep program bugs or invalid instruction data. These are permanent roadblocks. Retrying these will literally just duplicate your failures. Distinguishing between these 2 buckets is step number 1.
Moving right along to section 3, the safety of idempotency. Okay, this right here is the mechanical safety lock of our entire architecture. It is specifically designed to prevent those duplicate transactions we were just worrying about. An idempotency key is just a unique identifier ensuring a single authoritative result per logical operation, regardless of how many times a client retries it. Think of it kind of like a bouncer at a really exclusive club. If you map this unique key in your server's memory to a processing state or a done state, it stops duplicate on-chain effects entirely cold. Even if your front-end client aggressively smashes that retry button 100 times, your server just looks at the key and goes, hey, I'm already handling this, and simply ignores the duplicates. It is an absolute game changer.
Section 4. Smart retries and backoff. Now that we have our idempotency safety lock firmly in place, we can actually start performing smart, controlled retries. This is our vital pressure release valve, exponential backoff with jitter. Now, I know that sounds like a highly technical mouthful, but it simply means we introduce progressively longer delays between our retries, combined with a tiny bit of random time variation. That's the jitter part. This perfectly protects your API from overwhelming the RPC node with simultaneous, rapid-fire requests. Instead of screaming at the server every single millisecond when something fails, your API just politely waits a little bit longer each time it asks for an update. So let's walk through how this builds into our actual code logic. It's really quite an elegant loop. Step 1, we send the raw transaction. Step 2, we parse the response, specifically checking for those transient errors we talked about. Step 3, if it is transient, we wait using our exponential backoff strategy. And step 4, we retry. But, and this is crucial, only up to a strictly defined maximum number of attempts. During this entire loop, we are constantly polling for the signature status up to a bounded timeout. It's controlled, it's safe, and honestly, it's highly resilient.
Section 5, mapping HTTP statuses.
Okay, so we have these wonderfully complex internal blockchain mechanics working beautifully on the back end, but we have to translate that into standard HTTP statuses that any Web2 front-end developer can instantly understand. It's like a translation matrix.
If we get an immediate network error, our backend interprets it as transient and we hand the front end a 202 or 503 HTTP status. If we hit a program error, well, that's terminal, so we send back a crisp 400 bad request. If the signature is pending, it's a 202 accepted, and if it's finally confirmed, we get the golden 200 OK. Our API provides callers with clear, machine-readable answers they can actually program against, instead of making them just sit around expecting immediate finality.
Finally, Section 6. Debugging your API endpoints. In this final inspection phase, we have to actually verify that our shiny new endpoint behaves exactly as we expect under simulated stress. To properly debug, you need to run these checkpoint tests to produce a really solid debug report. First up, simulate a network glitch by temporarily disconnecting, just to verify your retry loop actually kicks in. Next, intentionally pass some invalid instruction data to trigger a program error and verify you get that 400 status back. Then, force a timeout to make sure your 202 pending status actually holds up. And lastly, and arguably most importantly, confirm there are absolutely zero duplicate on-chain effects when you just absolutely hammer the endpoint.
All right, let's summarize our key takeaways from today's engineering schematic. To build an API you can actually trust, you must parse RPC feedback accurately to separate your transient from terminal errors, enforce those idempotency keys to stop duplicate transactions, use bounded exponential backoff to relieve network pressure, and map everything to clear standard HTTP statuses. If you follow this exact blueprint, your API becomes a dependable, hardened surface, perfectly ready for our next big topic down the line, worker queues and bulk batching.
So I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Are your API endpoints truly robust enough to handle the blockchain's messy realities right now? It's a question every single Web3 developer needs to ask themselves as they start to scale up. Thank you so much for exploring all of this with me today. I highly encourage you to go visit forge.college to dive even deeper into this subject and to check out tons of other incredible Web3 related topics. Keep building, keep learning, and I will see you on the next explainer.